Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hello, my dear students. I hope you are okay. As you see today, we will continue chapter number 11, structuralism. But before we talk about structuralism, let me remind you about chapter number 10, post-colonialism. In post-colonialism, if you remember, I gave you the introductions about this term and I talk about the definitions of post-colonialism, like as a term in contemporary history. Post-colonialism is applied to denote the immediate time after the period during which imperial power retreated from their colonial territories. Such is believed to be problematic here, and also I discuss with you the empire writers back. We talk about the first major theoretical account of a wide range of post-colonial texts and their relationship with bigger issues of post-colonial culture. Also, I gave you the historical development and I talk about the historical period or state of affairs representing the aftermath of Western colonialism. So the term can also be used to describe, I told you, to describe the current projects to reclaim and rethink to history and agency of people subordinated under various forms of imperialism. All these things we discuss, and also I told you about the, let me say, practical criticism. So therefore today, let me tell you what is structuralism. Again, you have background about this term, but today in this unit or chapter, we will discuss it uh, one by one in every points. Look here, move with me at the contents to see the introductions. First of all, we will talk about the introduction. The second is historical background. The third is literary criticism and the theory. And the fourth here, you see practical criticism, big millions. We will discuss after we finish this chapter, chapter number 11. I'll tell you about practical criticism, big millions, what we mean by it, and we will talk about Bernard Shaw, how he introduced this play, and what is the lessons or conclusions in this play or a critical discussion. So therefore, move with me here to see structuralism. First slide, we will discuss the introduction. I mean here theoretical applications. And after that, look here what we mean by structuralism. As you see, structuralists believe that every system has a structure and that structures are the real things to lie beneath the surface or the appearance of meaning. So, what does it mean? It means that when we say structuralism is a mood of knowledge, is a mood of knowledge of nature and the human life that is interested, this term, interested in relationships rather than individual objects. Look here, it interested in relationships rather than the individual objects, or alternatively, where objects are defined by the set of relationships of which they are part and not by the qualities possessed by them taken in isolations. So we can say here structuralism is an intellectual tendency that seeks to understand and explain social reality in terms of social structure. We can say that structuralism is an intellectual, again, tendency that seeks to understand and explain social reality in terms of social structures. So, structures here are defined as the patterns and forms of social relations and combinations among a set of constituent social elements or component parts such as positions, units, levels, regions, and locations, and also finally social formations. So this is what we mean by structuralism. Look here at this. What is structures here in this slide? You will find also we added here in this slide that is generally thought of as the first school of thought in psychology. It is a theory that the structures of conscious experience could be understood by analyzing the basic elements of thought and sensations. Now, the second, it attempted to understand the mind as the sum of varying underlying parts, classifying the structures of minds much like chemists, and also classify the elements of natures into a periodic table. These elements would include idea like sensations, emotions, and images. So the focus of structuralism here was on reducing mental process down into their most basic elements. Structuralists used techniques such as introspections and to analyze the inner process of a human mind. So this is what is structuralism as a questions and how we can answer about these questions by it. Now, here there is a key points of structuralism. Key points here, the first is structuralist only maps what is there without outside sources. The second, structuralism is all about the interpretations of the text and making connections with it or within it. Pays attention, third, to actual structures of the text, for example, how certain word functions within sentences or paragraph. Finally, language and the structures of word generate the meaning. This is the key points of structuralism and how we deal with it. Now look here, another sections which is historical background of structuralism. In historical background here, we will talk about the 1960s in it. This approach to studying literature called structuralism, and it became popular here. The Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure, the father of modern linguistics, influenced this theory through his examinations of language as a system of called semiology. So therefore, if I want to talk about the historical background here, we can say that structuralism appears. When it appears in academia or for the first time in the 19th century. It appeared in the 19th century now and then reappeared in the second half of the 20th century when it grew to become one of the most popular approach here in academic field concerned with the analysis of language, cultural, and society. So the work of Ferdinand de Saussure concerning her linguistics is generally considered to be a starting point of 20th century. And also, if I want to talk about the structuralism, that the term as background here, historical background, that the term itself appeared in the work of a French Claude's means Levi Strauss, and also gave rise in France to the structuralist movement, which sparked in the work of thinkers and divers. So therefore, structuralism was corresponded to a particular moment in Western history. It expressed a certain degree of self-hatred of the rejections of traditional Western culture and also of a desire of modernism in search of a new models. So this is what can we say about the background of the structuralism. Now let us look here at this and continue that structuralist or structuralism success in France during the 1950s and 1960s is without a precedent in the history of the intellectual life of this country. The second is throughout the 1940s and 1950s, existentialism such as that propounded by Jean-Paul Sartre, was the dominant European intellectual movement. Structuralism rose prominent in France in the wake of existentialism, particularly in the 1960s. So this is what we mean by the background or historical background of the structuralism. Let us now talk about literary criticism and theory. The first is in literary criticism and theory, you will find that the structuralism is an approach to analyzing the narrative material by examining the underlying invariant structures. For example, a literary critic applying a structuralist literary theory might say that the authors of the West Side Story did not write anything really new because their work has the same structure. So here I can say that in literary criticism here it means that often follows the lead of Vladimir Prob, author of Morphology of the Folk, and in seeking out basic deep elements in stories and myth, so which are combined here in various ways to produce the many versions of the story. So also we can say that as in Freud and Marx, in contrast by transformations grammar, these basic elements are meaning pairing. Structuralist literary criticism, if I want to tell you about it, argue that literary pattern of a text can lie only in a new structure rather than in the specifics of characters development and voices in which that structure is expressed. So here, if you can see that structuralism here, structuralistic literary criticism argue that the novelty value of a literary text can lie only in a new structure rather than in specific of character developments and voice that structures express. Here also I can say that literary criticism often follow the lead of Vladimir Prob and also uh, let me say that seeking out basic deep elements in stories, methods, and more recently, and also combine in various ways to produce the many versions of the story or methods. This is what we mean by literary criticism. Let us here look about structuralist literary criticism. Also, we can say that it is a type of literary criticism that derives from structuralism. It is very important. It lies here. Claude Lévi-Strauss here as a logical consequence of his work or on methods proposed a search for the underlying structures of all narratives in all forms of fictions, including biography and autobiography, travel literature, and so on. So, a structuralist here, critics argue for the possibility of analyzing literary text systematically and scientifically. Structuralists here ignore biographical and historical considerations and stress the study of the text. This is everything about the literary criticism in structuralism or structuralist. Now, this is here in this slide. If structuralism has had an effect on what we do in the reading of literatures, what is it? What happens when one reads structurally? Now, the answer basically here, it means we do our best to transfer the principles of structuralist analysis in other area to our work with literary text. That means now we're answering about this question. That means that we will want to look for structures in literary discourse by looking beyond or below service features to find instead deeper and more abstract elements that underlie service and to establish both what those basic elements are and what the rules for their combinations are. So this is everything about the literary criticism and theory. Now, this is the time to talk about practical criticism. Now, this is the time also to talk about Pygmalion's George Bernard Shaw. Now you know that I gave you this is as assignments, and I send you 7 questions about the big millions in order to answer these questions, and you do it. So the type, or let me say, speak something about the types of the display. Display Pygmalions, we consider it as a didactic, first of all, play. It is a didactic play, first of all, and it's also a play with a few messages. There is a message here, and you have to underline when I say that message. The message or lessons here to the readers or the viewer. The first message is about the upper class. The upper classes which Shaw himself opposed by making an illiterate flowers girls pass off as dashes just by learning how to speak and act properly. Shaw here exposes the pretensions here of high society. In other words, the class is a false parallel in human societies. This is the first. So the first message is about the upper class. The second, what about the second message? Another message here, if I want to say that convey in the play, is that the the talented person should be allowed to pursue his or her high vocations or scientific research without getting in emotional turmoil. In emotional turmoil, here creatively, the play suggests may demand to unavoidable salt that may entail a cold way of living, but without leading to the problem of the loneliness. So Shaw himself faced a similar situations, but he solved it by having a friendly marriage in which he said emotions did not play an more important role. Emotions, according to Shaw, Bernard Shaw, did not play an important role to achieve this message. Shaw here had to keep Higgins and Eliza apart in order to achieve this message. When we talk about the emotional turmoil, so to achieve this message, Shaw here had to keep Higgins and Eliza apart. This is in the conclusion, or in the type of the play. Another thing I want to say that it changed. If I want to speak about the main subject of this play, I can say that it consists or build on number one, a change; two, transformation; three, transfigurations, or let me say metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is a main characteristics of Pygmalion. So if I want to talk about the main characteristics of this play, we can say that it built on number one, a change, transformation, transfigurations, metamorphosis, and also all these things we consider as a main characteristics or main idea of this play. And also, I can talk about the humor and satire in this play. Humor and satire in this play. Also, I can say that as a comedy, Pygmalion belongs to the type which called comedy of idea. And here it is very important to understand that this type or this play belongs to the type which called comedy of idea. Comedy of idea, a type that depends for its comic effects on unexpected ideas, I mean here unexpected ideas which are cleverly and humorously expressed and developed instead of unexpected situations, as in romantic comedy or particular humor, as in the comedy of humor. So certainly, Shaw we consider is the undependable master. We consider him as a master of the comedy of idea, as a typical Shavian also comedy. Pygmalion uses the humor which appeals to our intellect for a serious indeed and didactic purpose. So the attempt to teach and also to reform and the interest in idea are characteristics of Shavian drama and of the comedy of idea, of which Pygmalion is one of its best exponents. So therefore, this is what is the humor or the satire also which is present in this play. So this is a brief summary about this play Pygmalions by Bernard Shaw. We talk about the play as a didactic play, and also we talk about the message one and two. There are two messages of this play. We talk about also the humor and satire in this play. So about the plot and the characters and also the structures setting of this play, you have to read and prepare it well. And time is going to finish now. Before I leave, let me say goodbye and see you.